Hello, guys. Welcome to this new episode of the Aranzamendi podcast. We have some breaking news for you guys. Actually, devastating news for Donald Trump and for Pam Bondi and for Lindsey Halligan, because a federal judge, literally just dismissed the cases against James Comey and Letitia James, the criminal cases. Look at the news here. This is CNN. Says federal judge dismisses indictments against Letitia James and James Comey, saying Lindsey Halligan appointment was unlawful. Oh my God. I can assure you, Donald Trump has to be like super mad today. Let's read just quickly here, just a little bit about this news item. Look at this. Federal judge dismissed the indictments against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James on Monday. The judge found that the appointment of the interim U.S. Attorney Lindsey Halligan in Alexandria, Virginia, was invalid. Trump handpicked Halligan for the role amid increasing pressure to bring criminal cases against his political enemies, including Comey and James. The Attorney General's attempt to install Ms. Halligan as interim U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia was invalid, Judge Cameron McGowan Currie wrote in her Monday order. This has been a disaster, guys. I'm not sure if you've been following this case or not, but I'm just going to give you kind of like a quick summary here of what's going on. As you guys know, Donald Trump, obviously, he's been super mad about these people, his political enemies, people like James Comey and Letitia James. Why James Comey? Well, James Comey says in his book, he has a book and he states that in the beginning, the Trump first administration, he met Donald Trump somewhere for the first time. And Donald Trump told him that he was expecting James Comey to offer, like his total, complete loyalty. And James Comey responded saying, hey, I cannot offer you like unconditional loyalty. I can offer you honest loyalty, because he was going to go, by the book, by the law. And Donald Trump didn't like that. So eventually Donald Trump starts to ask James Comey to dismiss the Russia case, like to just close the investigation, to stop it, right? James Comey didn't do that. And eventually we had, the special prosecutor appointed Mueller, and that was a disaster for Trump. Trump will always claim that was, Russia. This is a hoax, a Democrat hoax. This was a witch hunt. But that witch hunt actually yielded over like 30 different indictments. And at least like 7 or 8 people ended up going to jail and pleading guilty. So you don't plead guilty, including lawyers like Michael Cohen and some others, including generals like Michael Flynn. You don't plead guilty unless there is incriminating evidence that you committed a crime. So Trump can, say all he wants that this was a witch hunt. It wasn't. A lot of people actually ended up pleading guilty. Prosecutors, prove in court beyond reasonable doubt that they actually committed crimes and so on. So Trump always, kept that, he knew he was going to deal with that later. He didn't forget it. And when it comes to Letitia James, the Letitia James was the person who actually prosecuted Donald Trump. Well, at least, she led the case in terms of the fraud, bank fraud and insurance fraud, because Trump was inflating, his properties' values, telling the banks that they were way more, worth way more than they actually were. So he was lying and then, falsifying documents to do so, while at the same time he was reporting to the, in New York, when it came to taxes, he was reporting different information stating that they were having different numbers when it came to, earnings and the money that they had at hand, or, property value, so that they could pay less in taxes. So eventually Letitia James processed that case and she won in court, and a jury found them, liable for fraud. So he wanted to, get his revenge. He wanted to take revenge. So what happened now was that he appointed a prosecutor first. He appointed a guy named Eric Siebert. So Eric Siebert was named as the first prosecutor to go against, or after Letitia James and James Comey. This happened back in May 2025. Once you name an interim prosecutor, you have 120 days. If within 120 days the Senate doesn't confirm that prosecutor, then the district court, in this case the the Eastern District of Virginia, then the district court is the one that will name a substitute if they deem necessary to change them, or they can decide if they want to extend the period for that initial interim prosecutor who was named by Donald Trump, which in this case was a Republican, a career Republican named Eric Siebert. So the Eastern District of Virginia decided to extend Eric Siebert's appointment. They found no problem. He was a credible, respected career prosecutor in that district. And they decided to just extend it because he was not confirmed by the Senate. But what happens then? Eric Siebert turns and, he tells Donald Trump and Pam Bondi at some point, 3-4 months in, I'm not finding any evidence for these prosecutions, so I'm going to decline. I don't want to charge these people based on politics. Donald Trump got furious. He told Pam Bondi, you need to get this guy out, fire him. We need to get somebody else on board, right? So Eric Siebert quit because of that pressure. He didn't want to act politically. And then Donald Trump decided to name Lindsey Halligan. Lindsey Halligan was Trump's own personal attorney. She happens to be an insurance attorney with zero background when it comes to criminal cases. She used to be part of Donald Trump's documents, classified documents, stolen classified documents case. She was part of the legal team, even though apparently she didn't do much because she didn't have much experience anyway. But anyway, now Trump brought her because he needed somebody, one of his lackeys, one of his loyalists to come in and do his bidding because we already had a Republican prosecutor, career prosecutor, who was very respected by both Republicans and Democrats, alike. And this guy said, there's no there. There's no evidence. There's no way we can do this, right? And not only he didn't want to do it, like nobody else in that district wanted to take part in this, criminal political investigation and prosecution. So he brings in Lindsey Halligan, who was, she's a former Arizona beauty queen or something, and has zero experience, and it immediately backfired. It showed. So she decided to do Trump's bidding. She immediately prosecuted James Comey and Letitia James, and then, the whole thing started to fall apart. One of the first things that happened was the fact that the judge, he was questioning why he had like two different documents with accusations and charges, right? He had the charges. He had a document that had two charges with Lindsey Halligan's signature, and then he had a second document with 3 charges and also Lindsey Halligan's signature. So when he questioned Lindsey Halligan, she said, I don't know why you have two. I prepared only one, I signed only one document with 2 charges. That's what you should have. And he's like, no, you gave me 2. And this second one has 3 charges, and it also has your signature. So what happened here? If you didn't sign, this one with 3 charges, like what's going on here? So the judge didn't like that. So it happened that when they got the jury to vote to approve the charges, initially it was the 3 document, the 3 charge document, right? The 3 charge accusation document. But the jury determined that they wanted to vote in favor of only 2 of the charges and not the 3. So what they did was they voted yes on 2 charges, no on the 3rd. So this document has to be discarded. Why? Because the law states that anytime you need to move forward and you have a document that says that one of the charges has been rejected, now you need to prepare a new document with only the charges that can move forward because of the jury's vote. So now what they did was they moved the 2 charges to the new document, but they did not present it to the jury. They went straight to the court with this new document, and now Lindsey Halligan signed it, and they basically transferred the vote from the first document onto the second document, but that's illegal. The judge didn't like that. So the judge was asking about stuff like that. They were asking in terms of like the process, and then they were questioning what happened with, her appointment, because the appointment was also questionable. Another thing that happened was that they had the 120 days. So as I was explaining, Eric Siebert was named. Then he was pressured to quit. And then Lindsey Halligan was appointed. But the problem is that the law states, and this comes from the Bush, George W. Bush era, the law states that if you name a special, a prosecutor, and he's not confirmed by the Senate, within 120 days, again, I'm going to repeat this, then you have the district court taking over. The district court, by law, is the one who's going to name who's going to replace that prosecutor, or if the original interim, prosecutor can remain in place. So in this case, that didn't happen. Trump fired Eric Siebert because he didn't want to act, as a political, hack or a loyalist or Trump's lackey. And now he wanted to bring Lindsey Halligan. Trump didn't have the authority to actually name Lindsey Halligan because it's over 120 days. This is what the George W. Bush administration did to bypass Senate confirmations because they couldn't get, partisan people through or whatever. They couldn't get them appointed. They started doing more, consecutive 120-day, interim namings. So they would appoint one in 120 days. Oh, expired. Let me name another one. And this way they were sidestepping and avoiding, the branch, Congress as a branch, and they were avoiding the process and basically pretty much mocking the law and saying like, yeah, we know we need confirmation, but we don't care. We're just going to keep naming more and more temporary interim, prosecutors. And that way we don't have to deal with the Senate. If they don't want to confirm a prosecutor, fine. We're going to name 10 in a row if needed. And, 120 days, that's 4 months. You name 3 in a year, you get a whole year sidestepping Congress and then just doing whatever you want to do. So to prevent that, Congress amended a law. And now they established that after 120 days, if you haven't gotten a confirmation from Congress, from the Senate, then at that point, they're going to take away the executive's capacity to name that prosecutor, to name a prosecutor for that district. And what they do is that they give that authority now to the district court. So after Eric Siebert was confirmed by the district court that he could stay beyond the 120 days, this doesn't belong to Trump anymore. It's not Trump's decision anymore. But Trump fired him thinking that now he could replace him with Lindsey Halligan. So at this point, now the court starts looking at all these facts. And then on top of that, you had Trump's Truth Social, post saying that he wanted Pam Bondi to go after his political enemies. And the judge said at some point, I believe it was the judge in this case, because we had a couple of judges looking into these cases. There's a separate judge that was analyzing, and going over the Letitia James case. I think I may have here. Let me a second. No, I don't have it here. Anyway, you guys probably saw this all over the news. It was a Truth Social post of Donald Trump. It was meant to be, according to the Wall Street Journal, it was meant to be a private message to Pam Bondi on Truth Social. By the way, very bad to have the U.S. president sending personal messages or work-related messages to the general Attorney General Pam Bondi on Truth Social. But anyway, they reported that Donald Trump meant to send her a private message. Pretty much, he was so mad about the fact that there was a lot of interviews, and he said, a lot of talk, a lot of blah blah blah, whatever, but no action. Nothing was going to happen. And he said, these people persecuted me. These people went after me politically with witch hunts. They accused me like 5 times. Something must happen, like we're losing respect. This is not looking good. We need to indict these people. That's pretty much the message, telling him you need to go after Adam Shifty Schiff, like he called him. You have to go after Letitia James. You have to go after James Comey. We have to get rid of this guy, Eric Siebert, the prosecutor, who didn't want to act politically, who didn't want to act, like not based on the law, but, based just on politics and revenge. He didn't want to do that. So Trump put all of that in that message, which was, unfortunately for Donald Trump, it was devastating because that also speaks to the motive. This is a political thing. And then one of the things that the judge, has said recently, one of these judges said was that this is kind of like, unheard of, because when it comes to law and court cases, you normally start as a prosecutor, or the Department of Justice, you start with a crime, and then you find the criminal. But it seems like you guys are doing, this thing backwards. You want to start with the criminal and then go and find a crime. You want to start with a name, which is what Donald Trump is doing. Hey, this is my list. This is my wish list of criminals. I want you to prosecute these people because these people prosecuted me. Some of them were part of the January 6th committee, or like Adam Schiff, or James Comey didn't want to stop the Russia investigation. Letitia James processed me, for like bank fraud and insurance fraud, and so on. So that's what the judge, at some point pointed out. Like, you guys are starting with a name and then trying to go backwards to find some sort of crime, and this is not looking good. So it was like mistake after mistake, and finally today we just saw the news, like you see here. Unfortunately for Donald Trump, this is really, really, really bad news. They just dismissed the case. They said that this was unfortunately super, super bad for the country to have this prosecution based on an illegal naming of the prosecutor, in this case, Lindsey Halligan. So these people are laughing right now. They're laughing. They know Donald Trump missed, his opportunity to just, do the right thing and not, ask for these cases to be prosecuted, but he did the wrong thing. He's very vindictive. He thought he was going to get away with it. Why? Because, right now he has control of everything. He knows Kash Patel is not going to stop him and at the FBI. He knows Pam Bondi is not going to say no. Have you guys noticed, by the way, that Pam Bondi hasn't said no a single time to Donald Trump? At least we have Congress on record right now, at least, with a couple of Republicans leading the way to go against Trump when it came to the Epstein files. And then finally, the rest of, Republicans, they didn't have a choice. They have to, they had to support it. They had to jump ships, and initially they were opposing it, but eventually they knew if we vote now in favor of pedophiles, we're gonna be in deep shit in 2026 or 2028, 2030, whenever elections come around. So they finally did what Bill Maher was asking them to do a couple of episodes ago on his show. Bill Maher was saying, I wish we see Republicans at least once tell Donald Trump, you know what? No, Mr. President, we can't do this. We, as of today, we are still a nation of laws, and as much as we would like to please you and support you, this one time we're going to say no. Bill Maher said, I don't care what it is. Do it at least one time. So they just did. On the Epstein files, finally, unanimously in the Senate, and 427 votes in the House of Representatives, they told Donald Trump, fuck off. Just fuck off. We need to see these files. And we know they have a plan. We know Donald Trump ordered Pam Bondi. Look, this is so messed up. Donald Trump ordered Pam Bondi to open a new investigation related to the Epstein case on Bill Clinton and some other people. Why? Because now they have plausible deniability. Now they can claim that because there's an active, ongoing new investigation, they can still hold on to some of the files. So now, even though there's a law and would make it criminal not to release the files, now Pam Bondi, and it would be 100% perfectly legal, Pam Bondi can claim that certain documents can't be released. And you can guarantee the documents that she's going to claim that are related to Bill Clinton's or any other person, new person being investigated, that the documents that include Donald Trump's names and, Donald Trump's associates or top Republicans, names that they don't want to release, won't be released because they're going to use this excuse now, and they can have an investigation open for as long as they want, pretty much. So now they have the excuse to do this. This is why Donald Trump, knowing he was going to lose, knowing that this vote was going to go on, in the affirmative way, with or without him, after months saying that it was stupid to keep talking about the Epstein files, months saying that these Republicans were weak, that they were inefficient, that they were stupid, actually, literally, and saying that, this guy died in 2019, but they still want to keep talking about him. We have to turn the page. We have to move on. We have a great economy going on. Like, it was tragic to honor these victims and, just give them some attention and allow them to speak up so that justice is served at some point. Donald Trump said, no, that was stupid. It's stupid to talk about this topic. Let's just forget it. Let's move on. But then all of a sudden, yeah, of course, I'm all for transparency. I'm going to authorize all Republicans. I'm going to recommend that they vote in favor of releasing the files. And then we saw a video of this DOJ official who was recorded. He didn't know it. There's an organization that actually does this kind of thing to get these kinds of videos, to get these people on record. And they filmed this DOJ official stating that they were going to release the files, but they were going to be heavily redacted, that they were going to hide all Republicans' names, including Trump's, obviously, and they were going to release only documents that mentioned Democrats. It's like, yeah, you guys want to pressure for this? Here you go. Now enjoy your donors, enjoy your top people like Bill Clinton or whoever else may be on those files. Enjoy that now this is going to be in the news cycle, and no Republican is going to be out there, and obviously not Donald Trump. I don't doubt that they may release some documents that mention Donald Trump, but in a way that is not obviously damaging. There's no way Pam Bondi is going to release any documents that would incriminate Donald Trump, like the ones that Congress got from, the Epstein estate, stating that Donald Trump was blowing Bubba, or that Donald Trump spent hours with a minor at Jeffrey Epstein's, home. So those came out and are very damaging, but those didn't come through the Department of Justice. So that's what's going on, man. This is 100% corrupt. But one thing that, is interesting. This is something that Glenn Kirshner will say a lot on Brian Tyler Cohen's show, on Brian Tyler Cohen's channel, that the Department of Justice is losing like 96% of the cases right now. 96%, guys. Would you hire a lawyer, if you knew that lawyer was losing 9 out of every 10 cases? That's Pam Bondi's record right now. Actually, more than 9. It's like 9.6 more. It's like 96%. 9.6 cases out of every 10 they are losing in court because they are weaponizing the Department of Justice. The thing that Donald Trump, cried about and he screamed about every single day. No, weaponization. This is unbearable. We never saw a government weaponize the Department of Justice. We never saw what we're seeing right now. That's what we never saw. We never saw a U.S. president literally commanding the investigation that should proceed, who should be investigated, who should be charged. We never saw that before. There could have been rumors like we saw with Bill Clinton and at that point Bill Clinton wasn't even the president anymore, but the Attorney General Lynch, that they met at an airport, and then they met inside the plane, and they were together for roughly 29 minutes, but they were talking supposedly personal matters. Fox News went bonkers. Fox News couldn't tolerate it, and the right, they were literally crying 24/7 and screaming and yelling and saying, how could it be? How could they be so stupid? Laura Ingraham would say, and all of them, criticizing Bill Clinton, saying that it was 100% inappropriate because Hillary Clinton had like an ongoing investigation with the FBI, and the fact that they just met casually and decided to, talk for a while, they said it was like, the apocalypse, like the end of the world. This is totally unacceptable. How could they be so stupid? But now you have Donald Trump literally offering a press conference at the Department of Justice, having Pam Bondi, by his side and saying, hey, Pam Bondi, I need you to, this is what I want you to do. This is my wish list, and I need you to go after these people. A press conference to talk about his political enemies at the Department of Justice. A social media post on Truth Social saying, I need you to go after Letitia James. I need you to fire this prosecutor that doesn't want to prosecute them. He's a rhino. He's a traitor. Even Democrats like him. Take him out. And let's appoint Lindsey Halligan. She's a great person. Of course she's a great person. She wants to do your bidding, right? So it was a disaster. Unfortunately for them, it just came to an end. Right now, this is what happened. The federal judge dismissed the indictments against Letitia James and James Comey, saying Lindsey Halligan appointment was unlawful, and indeed, it was unlawful. He did dismiss the cases without prejudice, so that means that the Department of Justice, if they find a prosecutor, because remember they can't name another prosecutor, so they would need to find in the Eastern District, and they didn't have one. This is the whole reason they had to name Lindsey Halligan. Nobody wanted to do this political, job, this political hit, job for Donald Trump. So they would either have to find a new prosecutor, or I'm not sure if they can go and try to appeal. We'll see. Stay tuned. I'm going to be sharing a little bit later. I'm pretty sure Glenn Kirshner and Mark Elias are going to be covering some of this. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the legal aspects of this, if they can still appeal this. And I'm pretty sure there's no appeal court that's going to overturn this. This was from, all the way from the very start. We knew this was going to go wrong. Prosecutors, ex-prosecutors like Glenn Kirshner, over 30 years of experience, he was saying this case is going to be dismissed. There's no way this is going to move forward. This has been a mockery, of the justice system. It's 100% political. There's no substance here. And even the judge was asking, and this was a very interesting point, the judge asked Lindsey Halligan if there was a declination memo. Like he was saying, when you have a prosecutor unwilling to prosecute a person who's being investigated, more often than not, they're going to prepare what's called a declination memo. So he was saying, do you have a declination memo? Do you have a memo stating why Eric Siebert didn't want to prosecute James Comey? Because if you do have that, you haven't presented that to the court. So there's even a chance that Eric Siebert did generate these memos. And they're going to have a really, really, really hard time trying to move forward, in some form of appeal, if that is possible. But at the same time, this impacted, it was James Comey's case, but it also impacted Letitia James's case. Why? Because, she was illegally appointed, and Lindsey Halligan was the one who signed these charges, before the courts. There was a different case in California. A federal judge also removed, they said it was illegal to appoint a guy in California. I forgot his name, and they removed him. But the difference in those cases that he started prosecuting was that he didn't sign the accusation documents with the charges for these cases. They were able to find some other supporting, cast among attorneys there in California that signed the documents for the illegally appointed prosecutor in California that was just removed from the cases. But the cases can go on because they found somebody to support that was able to sign them. But in this case, Lindsey Halligan signed everything for Letitia James's case and for James Comey's case. So unfortunately, the moment that she is deemed illegally appointed, therefore everything that she signed and she processed it, but that she signed also is going to be invalid. So it's going to be a very interesting case. Let's see how they move forward. I'm pretty sure Donald Trump is going to pressure and order Pam Bondi to do something to try to just appeal, or if not, to try to find somebody else to do the bidding that it's not illegally appointed. But I'm not sure that's gonna fly. I don't think they're gonna have an opportunity. We'll see what happens. Anyway, thank you for tuning in, guys. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Let me know if you think this case is going to move forward, if you think Donald Trump is going to give up, if you think it was 100% political, if you think they did the right thing. I'm pretty sure James Comey and Letitia James, they're happy campers today. These people must be celebrating right now and just feeling good about the fact that justice actually was served. We can't have the courts just doing political, Donald Trump's political bidding. So I tell people to have hope. There's a lot of people that feel very disappointed with what's going on with the country, and they believe that Donald Trump is never going to be stopped. But we have to trust, democracy and we must understand that the courts, even though it's been slow, they have been day by day, stopping this administration from doing everything they just want to do and just abusing the American people. So I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Please, as I said, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you can, please also visit Brian Tyler Cohen's Spanish channel. It's called Brian Tyler Cohen Español. I also host a Spanish podcast. So if you're watching here for the first time and you happen to speak Spanish or have any Spanish-speaking friends or family members, send them to my Spanish channel. It's called Aranzamendi Podcast Español. I would definitely appreciate that. So thank you guys, and I'll catch you on the next episode, okay? Take care.